When the first season of Tulsa King ended, I was a bit disappointed there weren't any more episodes. The show had a nice pace, it kept me intrigued, and it had some funny moments from time to time. It had some nice elements and it felt like it was worth the time to watch the show. So I was intrigued by what the second season might bring into its story. The waiting was not long, and when the time came, I had to struggle a bit to wait for the season to end. I wanted to watch the show from the beginning to the end, to experience it completely and to not wait for the next week's episode. I didn't have the patience to wait for it to see what comes next. The second season of Tulsa King begins right at the end of the first one. Dwight has to deal with the issues of being arrested for helping Stacy, but also new villains show up, who are threatening not only Dwight's criminal empire, but also the peace and safety of Dwight's friends and family. So this time, Dwight has to deal with those new problems to fix the old ones and to do best to fix and to avoid the new ones. Right from the beginning of the season, the creators of the show created an instant interest for the viewers. As I said, the story begins right from when the first season ended. They created that expectation in the mind of the viewer to want to see what is gonna happen now, and they deliver it. The beginning of the season is straightforward. It presents Dwight being once again arrested due to helping Stacy and gifting her a certain amount of money. And from this point onward, the story starts to create a path. It starts to introduce two new rivals for Dwight's business. It starts to conclude some stories that continued from the first season, like the story of Dwight and Stacy, most of it, and it starts to create a new intrigue, a new mood for the next chapter of the show. It tries to raise the stakes at a certain level and everything feels a bit forced in the way it is presented, but I don't think it is like that. The show gives the viewer a lot of stories that are connected well, creating a larger plot that continues the themes of the previous season, thus evolving the established ideas, giving them another sense. As in the previous season, the main theme of the show is family. If in the first season, the theme of family was presented in a comparison way by showing Dwight's relationship with his daughter getting closer and the relationship of his crime family getting estranged. But this time, the theme is presented a bit differently. The theme begins to present ideas of protection, of methods to consolidate and protect the family Dwight already has. Whether we talk about the protection of his daughter and her sons from a dangerous attack, and the danger of the life of crime Dwight has, or to protect his business and his partners from rival attacks, the theme is used frequently. Just like in the first season, this theme is expanded to other characters in a certain way. Tyson has to deal with this duality of his life, the normal gangster life and the repercussions this life had on his family, on his father's accident. Armand's life went totally off the rails and almost had to sell his crime family due to his desperation to get his wife and children back. He lost his job for a moment and lost all of the support he had from his friends, but in the end, everything went back to normal. Well, the normal at the beginning of the season, and was forgiven for his wrongs. The only one who maintained the balance between the two lives was Dwight, but this was because her daughter understood him and knew what it was going on, or because Dwight already had a lifetime of experience and knew how to balance things and avoid problems that might destroy that balance again. The story was made in a way to connect the characters much better than in the first season, connecting some points already presented in the previous chapter of the show. Margaret became Dwight's new love interest, but apparently she already had a connection with the new villains of the season. So, in a way, she became a damsel in distress. Stacy's story was ended and her story with Dwight was concluded in a fair way for the viewer. Chicky's actions caught up with him, so he had to pay for his crimes and for his arrogance. And Dwight evolved more compared with the first season. If at the beginning, Dwight was presented as this big, tough guy who fixes everything and knows how to deal with all types of problems, the second season presented him in a way that enhances all those features, but also making him to be independent from random elements that might slow him down, presenting him to defend himself at his trial with ATF, making him to defend his position against Bevilacqua and Thrasher, presents him more in a dangerous way and, at the same time, more focused and more serious on the decisions and business opportunities. It makes him be more of a boss and a leader than it was presented previously. What looked to me to be an interesting take on the story was, in a way, the motivation of the conflict from this season. The conflict with the ATF was fixed, but that one was connected with the previous season, so it was like an epilogue to what it was before. But the thing that kinda started to move everything was jealousy. Thrasher wanted to impress Margaret and win her heart, but she did not have any interest in him. So the issues were created and all the things started to appear. Thrasher called Bevilacqua to take back his Tulsa territory, a territory that was presented to the viewer in season 1 as one that belongs to no one. Thrasher also wanted to outsmart Dwight in his weed business, but it didn't succeed. Also, a man who worked with Thrasher wanted to get rid of competition and started to attack Dwight and his business at the beginning and later his close ones. Thus, those actions created the whole war from the show. It is funny when you think that the whole conflict of the season started because of ego and love for a woman. But it is not uncommon though. The way both Thrasher and Bevilacqua were presented is made in a way to feel right from the beginning who is made to live this life of a gangster. Bevilacqua looks like the gangster that you really don't want to cross paths with. It is made to be dangerous, vengeful, but quite fair. Thrasher, you see he has some guts, but you feel in a way he is not made to be a bad guy. He is just opportunistic and arrogant a bit. Overall, he is presented as this rich guy who tries to be a gangster, but he is not made for this kind of life. Also, making him have issues with his partners, who started to attack Dwight and started this whole gangster war, is a nice addition and representation for his weak role as a bad guy. The way the creators made those characters, all those details, it makes you feel you watch Tulsa King, but it is more like an action movie rather than a gangster series. Neil McDonough and Frank Grillo are a great addition to the cast, and their contribution to the whole story of the series fits perfectly with the concept of danger for the family that they represent. But it does not give that feeling of a gangster movie. This feeling somehow comes back into the series in the last episode when Bevilacqua and Cheeky are going to Dwight with a proposition, and Cheeky is killed due to the disrespect he showed to Bevilacqua. Even though that moment is kinda out of nowhere, it is made to be logical and natural. The viewer realizes Cheeky had it coming with all his actions and superior arrogant attitude. But other than that, the season goes more to the style of an action series than to the one of a gangster series. I do not want to say that is a bad idea for the genre. Being a Sylvester Stallone project, it kinda gets this feeling of an action story overall. But what is a good thing for this show is it creates a balance between everything. From what I observed, the main villain of the first season, Dwight's original crime family, was made a secondary overall villain in the second season, due to the introduction of the new characters, so my feeling regarding this change in style might be because of that, because the big villain's story was presented in the second season as a side story, and it concluded quite direct, and it felt it was added just to be added in the second season to be a meanwhile story. But I understand this thing because somehow Cheeky was not a danger right now to Dwight. It was a threat, but it was not an immediate one. The new guys were more dangerous. But as I said at the beginning of the video, the first season had a lot of elements that made the series unique, like comedy, action. Let's remember the fact the first season played a bit with the idea of superstitions regarding supernatural elements. The second season went on the same route. It had elements that were more action-oriented, true, but it kept that balance quite well. Overall, up until now, the series is a gangster story, and adding those feelings and details of other film genres makes the series feel fresh and gives the viewer this sensation of rhythm and different, which in my opinion is a good thing because it takes the viewer through different types of emotion and feelings and makes it to experience different types of storytelling through one single story, making the viewer to come back every time to see what is gonna happen with the main character's journey. There is a thing, however, that truly is made to be out of nowhere in the show. The whole story of the season is dealt in exactly 9 episodes. The conflict, the evolution of the characters, it is all that it takes. However, the 10th episode, it might be taken as a conclusion, as an epilogue for the season, with stories that are closed forever and the main characters who continue to deal with their lives. But it also presents a small hint for what the 3rd season story might be. The episode does not give you too much information. It just shows a scene in which an FBI agent says that the DC office is interested in Dwight's activities and his life story, and right after that, the show ends in a cliffhanger that it feels out of nowhere. Federal agents are arresting Dwight in the middle of the night, and then Dwight is informed that he will work for them. As I said, the ending is felt out of nowhere. instant, and I think it might be misleading. This is just my opinion, and I will totally want to see the third season quite soon because I am intrigued by this thing, but there are two ideas here. Either Dwight is forced by the government to work with them, or it was taken by someone and threatened to work with them, and the scene with the FBI agent from earlier to be just a piece of information that FBI might need him to protect him in case of something against another bigger threat. There were some hints presented from time to time in the season that Dwight might be watched by someone very important. However, the seeds of this idea were planted in the story right after Tyson's father's incident, in which he was injured, but it took an interesting turn right at the end of the series. The ending leaves the viewer with a big question mark in its mind. What is happening? It is connected to Bevilacqua? It is connected to something else? It is connected with other villains he dealt with in the past or his businesses? The creators of the show definitely let the viewer wonder. If you think about it, the 10th episode was quite calm, quite paced compared with the other episodes, in which the story was totally there and kept the viewer connected with the story. But the 10th episode misleads the viewer thinking about peace and calm for a time, just to give that scene at the end and making it wonder what is going on. If the creators of the show are preparing something quite new and interesting for the third season, I am all in, and I truly think they will do something big. But if the third season will have this plot and he will be just a simple storyline that will lead nowhere from the point of view of certain themes, and it will be made just to be made, to be unique, I think they will fail badly. We just have to wait and see what is gonna happen, but by the looks of it, the cliffhanger truly precedes something big is going to happen. What exactly? We will have to wait for it. From the point of view of the cinematography, the series maintains its concept presented in the first season. It does not bring some new elements to the table. However, due to its action-oriented vibe and presentation of the story, I can say that the editing process of the show feels more dynamic. The moments are made in a way to feel the suspense and makes the viewer just watch the show calmly, but it also makes the viewer feel ready for something that might happen. And when the series presents moments of combat and suspenseful moments, the show definitely delivers those moments quite well. In a way, I do like that Tulsa King is keeping its cinematographic style that was presented previously. The difference that I was talking about is made through the characters and the story, which makes it a natural decision for a show like this one. But keeping the cinematographic style in a way to give this feeling of continuity, in case someone might watch both seasons back to back, is beautiful. Sometimes, in the process of creation of a television series, the cinematographic style changes with the pace of the show. If the style is different, so is the way it is presented. And it might look like something that might be just a simple nod for someone, but keeping the style and the rhythm quite close to the original is something good. It creates this flow, this feeling of a continuation of a film that is not losing its identity and is keeping you there, stuck in the chair to keep watching the film without getting bored or annoyed. I like that, even though it is something that might be an ordinary thing for someone. From certain points of view regarding the way the show evolved in this second season, I can say that overall, me as a viewer, I felt satisfaction regarding its story. It kept me intrigued, it gave me a good story to watch, the cast added two great actors that totally fit perfectly in the style of the show and in its story. But I have to say that I kinda loved the first season more than this one. The second season, as I said, was great. Its story was interesting and it was logical for many things regarding the way the show was made to truly go with this type of story. But it felt a bit like a filler, I think. True, the way the show evolved, bringing other crime families, other types of villains in the mix, was great. But the first season had that certain pattern of something new, like you watch the characters bringing something up and starting to build something, having already a certain background that you do not necessarily need to know about it. The second season evolved their story, true, and watching the season back to back might be okay, but if you're gonna watch the seasons like I did, with a pause between them, you feel the story is a bit different. I do not say this is a bad thing, again, it is just my opinion. Probably due to its action-oriented style, the type of story might have this feeling, but yeah, I think the first season was better. The second season is still good and has good ideas and themes, but if I have to say something bad about it, I might say that it tried to tell its story a bit differently, forgetting from time to time the required feeling that made the viewer to watch the first season in the first place. I do not think this is a bad idea overall, and I definitely want to see the third season, which might bring up something to the table, but for the moment, the whole series as it is quite alright. Let's see what is gonna happen in the future. I am curious to see if the series will keep its vibe and style or if it will bring some new ideas. So, in order to conclude this video, am I disappointed? I loved the second season of Tulsa King. It was alright. It kept me focused and it was enjoyable. It intrigued me with its ending and made me want to see what is gonna happen in the next season. So, yeah, it was a nice experience overall.